In the far darkness of our solar system, a wanderer has appeared once again. Its name is 3I divided by Atlas, only the third interstellar object ever observed crossing our celestial neighborhood. Unlike the planets we know, unlike the comets born from our own Oort cloud, this traveler carries the mystery of another star system in its dust and debris. It did not belong here, yet it passed through, and with it came whispers of something strange, something unexplainable. The telescopes that tracked its faint glow began to notice anomalies, a shifting coma, streams of particles bending against prediction, and signals embedded in its light that seemed more like riddles than random noise. To scientists, 3I divided by Atlas is not just an icy fragment, it may be a message from the deep time of the cosmos, written in the smallest of particles and patterns. Tonight, we embark on a new journey, where the theme of something unexplainable just came. From 3I divided by Atlas appears not only as a scientific phenomenon, but also as a question that challenges our imagination. If you enjoy this kind of quiet, long-form storytelling, if it helps you learn, focus, or simply relax at the end of a noisy day, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if this space truly brings you peace. Where are you listening from right now? Let me know your place on the map and the time on your clock in the comments. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from all around the world. And so, we return to the traveler, 3I divided by Atlas, not merely as a comet, but as a carrier of enigmas. Was it carrying the seeds of life, drifting in the interstellar wind as Carl Gibson and the panspermia researchers once proposed? Did ALMA truly glimpse an organic mist filled with complex molecules resembling the scaffolds of pre-DNA? Were the geometric imprints found in its signals the echoes of pi, e, and the Fibonacci sequence mere coincidence, or hints of a universal language? Before we explore these daring ideas, we must first pause at a quieter, but no less unsettling discovery. Within its luminous tail, spectrographs from ESO detected strange nanoparticles, substances unlike any compound ever catalogued on Earth. This is where our story begins to unfold. In the silent, perpetual night of the Atacama Desert, under a canopy of stars so dense it seems a solid thing, the Very Large Telescope turns its cyclopean eye towards the void. It is not merely observing, it is interrogating the light, sifting the photons from a visitor for a story written in their energy. The target is 3I divided by Atlas, an enigmatic wanderer from a system not our own. And as its faint luminescence is captured and fractured into a spectrum, a narrative begins to unfold. A narrative not of grand, sweeping declarations, but of a whisper, a subtle, microscopic script etched into the very fabric of its outgassed material. The initial data, a cascade of emission and absorption lines, told a familiar, if exotic, tale of ices and dust. But upon a more profound, more contemplative analysis, a deeper mystery revealed itself, hidden within the noise like a secret waiting for millennia to be told. The European Southern Observatory's instruments, calibrated to the atomic transitions of our known cosmos, registered a series of narrow, anomalous absorption bands, spectral fingerprints that refused to be catalogued, belonging to nanoparticles that defied any known compound. This was not merely an unknown mineral, it was a lexicon of the alien, a grammar of the unimagined, written in a language of matter we have only just begun to decipher. Could it be that we are not merely looking at a comet, but reading a message inscribed upon its very substance? According to current models of interstellar chemistry, the outgassing of a celestial body should be a relatively straightforward affair, a release of volatile ices and the sublimation of simple silicate grains or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that have been forged in the crucibles of stellar nurseries and subsequently processed by the harsh radiation of the galaxy. The initial spectral data from 3I divided by Atlas seem to confirm this, displaying the broad, telltale signatures of water ice and carbon monoxide. Yet, when the mid-infrared instrument on the VLT focused its exquisite sensitivity on the finer details, it revealed a set of absorption features so sharp and so discrete that they could only originate from structures of a highly specific, highly ordered nature, features that bore no resemblance to the chaotic jumble of common circumstellar dust. The polarimetry data further deepened the enigma, indicating that these particles were not spherical or irregular, but possessed a stark, plate-like geometry. suggesting a form of crystalline or quasi-crystalline order that scatters light in a manner profoundly alien to our material science. One team at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, poring over the failed matches in the NASA AAMES spectral library, has proposed a radical, yet tantalizingly plausible, model. These could be amorphous alloys, intricately woven with two-dimensional semiconductor materials, a metamaterial whose properties are defined not by its chemistry alone, but by its topology. But if this is the case, what natural process, what random confluence of cosmic forces could possibly engineer such sophisticated and specific forms? The mainstream explanation, the one that adheres most strictly to the principle of Occam's razor, posits that these nanoparticles are simply exotic minerals, harmless crystalline salts or complex carbides formed under pressure and temperature regimes unimaginable on Earth, their spectral signatures merely a reflection of a chemistry we have not yet encountered in our own limited celestial backyard. This is a comfortable hypothesis, one that keeps the object within the realm of known physics, a peculiar but ultimately natural phenomenon. It suggests that the universe, in its infinite variety, has simply concocted a recipe for matter we have not yet tasted. Yet, that very comfort is challenged by the peculiar specificity of the data, by the unnerving geometry implied by the polarization, and by the sheer improbability of such ordered structures, arising spontaneously from a chaotic cloud of gas and dust. The narrowness of the absorption bands speaks not of a chaotic mixture, but of a precise, almost engineered resonance. This leads us to the first, more speculative tier of hypothesis. What if these particles are not passive minerals, but active components? What if they function as matter bits, discrete units of information, where their specific atomic arrangement encodes a binary or even a quaternary state, a physical memory written not on a silicon chip, but on a lattice of alien atoms, waiting for the correct frequency of light to be read? Or perhaps they serve as a form of dry enzyme, a catalyst, not for biochemical reactions, but for a more fundamental process of self-assembly, providing a template or a seed around which other, larger structures could spontaneously form from the raw materials of the interstellar medium, a recipe for construction written in stone. This notion of function, however, inevitably spirals into a deeper, more profound level of speculation. If these nanoparticles are indeed switches or memory units, then they imply a system, a distributed network of computation. One could envision the entire cometary coma not as a simple cloud of dust, but as a vast, ephemeral computer, its processing power distributed across trillions of these microscopic nodes, each one a memory cell in a colossal, decentralized intelligence. The light from our sun, or from any star the object passes, would not merely illuminate it, but would power it and query it, the specific spectral lines acting as input commands that trigger cascades of interaction between the particles. This is a concept that stretches the very definition of life and mind, suggesting a form of consciousness that is not housed in a single brain, but is diffuse, existing in the relationships between countless simple components, a mind that thinks with the slow, patient rhythm of orbital mechanics. The final, and most unsettling, hypothesis considers their potential as primers for an alien biosensor. Could these particles be designed to interact with biological systems, lying dormant until they encounter the specific molecular machinery of life, whereupon they trigger an unknown reaction, a form of cosmic infection or communication that operates on a scale far below our current capacity to detect? Are we, in our eagerness to study this object, inadvertently exposing our biosphere to a trigger mechanism for which we have no biological defense? The implications of these possibilities are as vast as they are double-edged. On one hand, the opportunity is staggering. The discovery of such engineered nanomaterials could herald a new age for human technology. The synthesis of these amorphous alloy, 2D semiconductor hybrids could lead to revolutions in ultra-thin electronics, quantum computing, and photonics, gifting us with material properties that defy our current understanding of solid-state physics. It would be a treasure trove of knowledge, a gift from the stars that could accelerate our civilization by centuries. Yet, the risk is equally profound, residing in the realm of the unpredictable. If these particles are not inert, if they are indeed functional components of a larger, unknown system, Their introduction into our environment, whether in the upper atmosphere or more worryingly, in our laboratories, could have consequences we cannot possibly foresee. Their interaction with biological systems, with our own cellular machinery, could be benign or it could be catastrophic, a silent, microscopic key, turning in a lock we never knew existed. Do we possess the wisdom to handle a technology that is not merely advanced, but is fundamentally alien in its design and purpose? As we stand at the precipice of this discovery, holding a handful of starlight that contains a scripture of the unknown, we are faced with a choice that will define our future. The nanoparticles of 3I divided by Atlas are either a geological curiosity or a technological artifact of unimaginable sophistication. They are either a new element in the periodic table of nature or a new letter in the alphabet of intelligence. Their silent spectral language beckons us to learn, to understand, and to perhaps become something more than we are, while simultaneously warning us of the perils that accompany such profound knowledge. But if these microscopic messengers are indeed a form of memory or a catalyst for creation, what other wonders or what other warnings might be contained within the heart of the object itself, where the energies involved defy even our most robust physical models and suggest a power source that belongs not to our reality, but to one we have yet to dare imagine? In the silent, perpetual night of space, where distances are measured in the ghostly trails of ancient light and the slow, inexorable drift of celestial bodies, our instruments stand as lonely sentinels, translating the faint whispers of the cosmos into a language we can barely comprehend. For generations, the foundational principle governing these whispers has been one of conservation and decay. A star expends its nuclear fuel, a comet sheds its volatile ices, and even the most cataclysmic events adhere to the strict accounting of mass energy equivalents. Yet, from the profound darkness between stars, an object has emerged that challenges this very bedrock of cosmic order. Designated 3I divided by Atlas, this interstellar wanderer has presented the astronomical community with a conundrum so profound it threatens to unravel our most reliable models. It is an object that appears to be not merely a passive relic of formation, but an active, dynamic entity, one whose energy signature defies the established ledgers of physics. The initial data, a stark collection of numbers and graphs from the vigilant eyes of the NEOWISE mission and the analytical teams at the Goddard Space Flight Center, told an impossible story. The energy radiating from this visitor was not merely anomalous, it was in excess, a surplus that seemed to materialize from the void itself, pushing its measured output beyond the upper thresholds of our standard instrumentation. This is not a tale of mere detection, but one of revelation, where the very tools we use to define our reality are proven insufficient, and the universe presents us with a bill we did not anticipate, for a debt we did not know we owed. According to current models of cometry and asteroidal behavior, an object's luminosity is a direct and predictable consequence of its interaction with the stellar wind and solar radiation. As an icy body approaches a star, the increasing flux of photons heats its surface, triggering the sublimation of volatile materials, water ice, carbon monoxide, and methane, which then stream away from the nucleus, carrying dust with them, to form the characteristic coma and tail. This process, governed by the well-understood laws of thermodynamics and gas dynamics, should produce a light curve that is a smooth, predictable function of the object's distance from the Sun and its rotational properties. The initial analysis of 3I divided by Atlas, however, revealed a light curve that was anything but smooth. It displayed sharp, episodic increases in brightness, spikes of luminosity that were asymmetrical and far too intense to be explained by any known outgassing mechanism. The data from NEOWISE, which observes the heavens in the infrared spectrum, where thermal properties are laid bare, further complicated the picture, showing an infrared excess that did not correlate with the expected heating and cooling cycles of a simple rocky or icy body. It was as if the object was periodically switching on an internal furnace, radiating energy in a manner completely divorced from the solar energy it was receiving. The Goddard team's meticulous analysis added another layer of mystery, recording periods where the time taken for the object to achieve peak brightness was significantly shorter than the theoretical minimum time required for heat to diffuse through even a porous, low-density structure. This violation of thermal diffusion timescales pointed towards a phenomenon that was not surface deep, but perhaps involved the entire volume of the object responding in unison, or an energy release mechanism that was fundamentally non-thermal in nature. And when one looks back at the brief, tantalizing visit of our first known interstellar object, Oumuamua, a pattern of defiance begins to emerge. Oumuamua, too, exhibited a non-gravitational acceleration that could not be fully reconciled with outgassing, for no accompanying cometary coma was ever detected. With 3I divided by Atlas, we see a similar non-outgassing radiative deviation, a phrase scientists use to describe an object accelerating and brightening as if by rocket thrust, yet without the observable expulsion of material that should fuel such a rocket. The anomaly, it seems, is repeating itself. Could it be that we are witnessing the same underlying unknown physics manifesting in two distinct visitors from the galactic void, a signature of processes that are commonplace in the nurseries of other star systems, yet remain entirely foreign to our own? But what natural process could possibly account for such a flagrant violation of energy conservation, even on a localized scale? One speculative hypothesis, drifting from the more esoteric shores of theoretical physics, posits the existence of a trans-dimensional energy pump. In this model, the object is not a closed system as we assume, but a nexus, a topological flaw in spacetime that allows for a subtle transfer of energy from a higher dimensional manifold or a parallel vacuum state into our own. The immense gravitational potential of the object, warping the local fabric of spacetime, could theoretically create a conduit, a siphon drawing upon the limitless energy of the quantum foam or the bulk of a hidden dimension. Another, equally profound explanation lies in the manipulation of the vacuum itself. The quantum vacuum is not a true nothingness, but a seething, bubbling sea of virtual particle pairs constantly flashing in and out of existence. It is conceivable that an object with a specific, crystalline or metamaterial structure could harness the Casimir effect or other quantum phenomena to create a gradient, effectively extracting usable energy from this infinite reservoir of zero-point fluctuations, turning the empty space around it into a power source. Yet, the precision of the energy release, its episodic and amplified nature, suggests a mechanism far more ordered than a simple, chaotic bleed from another dimension. This leads to a second, more structured hypothesis that we are not looking at a simple rock, but at a naturally occurring or artificially engineered optical cavity. Imagine a structure, perhaps hollow or laced with resonant chambers, whose geometry is perfectly tuned to capture and amplify specific wavelengths of ambient radiation, starlight, the cosmic microwave background, even the faint energy of the interstellar medium. Through a process of coherent resonance, similar to the principle behind a laser, this captured energy could be stored and then released in powerful, directed bursts of light, explaining the sharp spikes in the light curve. The object would, in essence, be a natural lighthouse, its internal structure acting as a colossal photonic engine, concentrating diffuse energy into a brilliant, intermittent beacon. But if such a natural phenomenon is possible, why have we never observed it in the countless asteroids and comets within our own solar system? What unique conditions of formation in the crucible of another star could give rise to such a perfect, resonant architecture? This line of inquiry inevitably spirals towards a third and far more unsettling tier of hypothesis. If the structure and function of the object are too precise, too efficient to be the product of blind natural forces, could we be witnessing a technology? The concept of a Dyson sphere, a megastructure built to encapsulate a star and harness its entire energy output, has long been a staple of theoretical astrophysics and science fiction. But what of a microscopic equivalent? A Dyson-esque machine on the scale of a small asteroid, an autonomous probe whose very substance is engineered to convert matter and vacuum energy into usable power with near-perfect efficiency. Its non-gravitational acceleration would not be from rocket thrust, but from a gentle, continuous push generated by this internal power source, perhaps through some form of photon drive or manipulation of inertial mass. The episodic brightening could then be interpreted not as a malfunction, but as a purposeful signal, a diagnostic pulse, or even the waste heat from a computational process of unimaginable complexity. Are we, In our cautious analysis of spectral lines and thermal curves, inadvertently studying the exhaust fumes of an engine whose principles of operation are as beyond our understanding as a nuclear reactor would be to a Bronze Age smith. The implications of confirming any one of these hypotheses are simultaneously utopian and terrifying. If the mechanism behind this energy surplus can be understood, let alone replicated, it would herald nothing less than a revolution for humanity. It would promise a source of clean, virtually limitless energy, drawn not from the burning of finite resources, but from the very fabric of space-time, or the clever amplification of ambient cosmic radiation. It would power our civilizations for millennia, lift us from our planetary cradle, and redefine our place in the universe as masters of a physics that is currently only dreamed of in equations. The very foundations of our technology, from propulsion to computation, would be transformed. Yet, this same knowledge carries the seed of profound peril. The possession of such a power source would inevitably trigger a global technological arms race of unprecedented ferocity. The nation or entity that first unlocks the secret of 3i divided by Atlas would hold an advantage so decisive it could dictate the future of the planet, potentially leading to a new era of imperialism or conflict, fought with tools that could manipulate the fundamentals of reality. The very energy source that could unite humanity in a golden age could just as easily become the ultimate weapon, the key to a prison of our own devising. Can humanity be trusted with a key that unlocks not just the energy of the stars, but the energy of the void itself? Thus, as we stand gazing at the data streams from our most advanced telescopes, we are left with a mystery that transcends mere astrophysics. The anomalous energy signature of 3i divided by Atlas is more than a puzzle for astronomers. It is a Rorschach test for our species, forcing us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the nature of reality itself. The careful, conservative explanations of mainstream science strain under the weight of the evidence, while speculative theories stretch into realms that blur the line between physics and philosophy, between natural phenomenon and engineered artifact. The path forward is fraught with both incredible promise and existential risk, all hinging on the answer to a single, deceptively simple question that now divides the scientific community. A question that strikes at the very heart of our search for meaning in the cosmos. Is this the signature of a new, natural physical phenomenon, waiting to be catalogued in our textbooks? Or is it, in fact, a material message, a physical artifact dispatched from a civilization whose technology is indistinguishable from the very laws of nature we strive to understand? When the data ceases to align with expectation, when the celestial object designated 3i divided by Atlas persists in its defiance of every predictive model, the fundamental inquiry undergoes a profound metamorphosis, shifting from a question of how to a question of why and, most unsettlingly, who. The scientific community, a bastion of measured consensus, finds itself cleaved along a fault line of interpretation, confronting a paradigm of cosmic proportions. Are we witnessing the serendipitous unveiling of a novel physical phenomenon? Or are we the intended recipients of a material message, a parcel dispatched across the interstellar void by a consciousness not our own? This is no longer a mere astronomical puzzle. It is a Rorschach test for our species, projected onto the canvas of the cosmos. The object hangs in the void, an inscrutable glyph, and we are left to decipher whether it is a random formation of nature or a deliberate inscription of intellect. The mainstream scientific explanation, ever cautious, marshals its arguments with the disciplined rigor of established physics. According to current models, 3i divided by Atlas could represent a rare, perhaps unprecedented natural experiment, a fragment of a planetary body shattered in a cataclysmic collision within a distant system, its composition altered by exotic pressures and temperatures we can scarcely replicate. Alternatively, it might be a cosmic iceberg, a conglomerate of dark matter isomers, or a Bose-Einstein condensate on a macroscopic scale. Its strange acceleration and emissions, the result of outgassing from materials with properties unknown to our periodic table. Scientists from the European Southern Observatory, NASA, and JAXA have established a fragile temporary consensus on its atypical nature, a carefully chosen term that cloaks a multitude of perplexing data points. The meticulous time series data, a chronicle of its passage, reveals not chaos but a subtle repeating pattern in its emission spectra, synchronized precisely with its orbital phase, as confirmed by independent astronomers at the Las Cumbres Observatory Global Telescope Network, LCOGT. This synchronization suggests an internal clockwork, a rhythm imposed by its interaction with the solar wind and solar gravity, a phenomenon that could, in principle, be explained by a complex, lopsided internal structure heating and cooling in the sunlight. But that does not account for the unnerving specificity of the pattern, a modulation that resembles a compressed data stream more than a natural resonance. The very regularity, the clock-like precision of its variations, whispers of design rather than chance. This leads us to the first speculative hypothesis, that 3I divided by Atlas is not a natural body at all, but an interstellar parcel, a von Neumann probe, rendered inert or dormant by its immense journey. Its composition, a shield against cosmic radiation and micrometeoroids, its structure, a potential storage medium, and its emissions, a faint residual beacon or a data library waiting to be read. Could its very substance be the message, a physical encyclopedia written in the language of atomic and molecular structures, a testament to a civilization that chose to send a piece of its reality rather than a fleeting radio signal? Yet, this hypothesis immediately bifurcates, presenting us with an even more profound and somber possibility. If it is an artifact, is it a scout, actively reporting back, or is it a silent, drifting tombstone? The second hypothesis posits 3I divided by Atlas as a technological fossil, the final relic of a civilization that has long since flickered out into silence. It is a time capsule, a monument, or perhaps a warning, carrying the condensed knowledge of a species that achieved interstellar capability only to succumb to its own hubris or a cosmic catastrophe. Its trajectory, seemingly random, could be the final, unguided course of a vessel whose senders are now dust, its message rendered an elegy. The patterns we detect would then be not a live transmission, but the enduring, ghostly echo of its original programming, a clock still ticking in an AVT, empty house. This line of reasoning compels us to analyze the implications at a deeper, more systemic level. At the first level of analysis, we have the conservative interpretation, a misunderstood natural phenomenon, a cosmic mimic that tricks our instruments and our desire for meaning. Our models are simply incomplete, and 3I divided by Atlas is the key that will unlock a new chapter in physics, teaching us about states of matter that exist only in the extreme environments of galactic cores or the primordial universe. The second level, the artifact hypothesis, suggests a reconnaissance probe, a piece of technology designed for exploration, its mission parameters inscrutable to us. But it is the third level of analysis that truly expands the scope of the conceivable, proposing that 3I divided by Atlas is not merely a probe, but a single node in a galaxy-spanning material communications network. In this vision, the cosmos is not filled with radio waves, but with physical objects, robust and durable, carrying vast libraries of information encoded in their molecular makeup, a slow, sure method of communication between stars that transcends the limitations and noise of the electromagnetic spectrum. Are we observing a single random piece of cosmic flotsam, or have we inadvertently intercepted a package from a galactic Internet of Things, a system of communication so advanced it uses mass and matter as its medium? The societal impact of this schism in understanding is already becoming palpable, creating a stark polarization of perception. The scientific community advocates for a posture of extreme caution, a slow, methodical deconstruction of the mystery, wary of the siren song of sensationalism and the perils of anthropocentric bias. They speak in the measured tones of peer review, of error bars, and statistical significance. In stark contrast, global popular culture, fueled by the immediacy of digital media, has seized upon the object with an eager, almost desperate, fascination. It has become a blank screen for humanity's hopes, fears, and myths, a symbol of first contact, of divine messengers, or of existential threat. This cultural chasm presents both a profound opportunity and a grave risk. The opportunity lies in the potential to establish a new scientific discipline, A. Material exolinguistics, a protocol for reading physical objects for intentional information, a grammar of engineered matter. It forces us to consider that the ultimate message from the stars might not be a sequence of prime numbers, but a blueprint for a technology or a recipe for life itself. The risk, however, is a catastrophic misinterpretation. To project our own narratives onto this silent object is to risk understanding nothing of its true nature, to see a face in the clouds while missing the approaching storm. If we are holding a new law of physics in our hands, will our desire for a message blind us to its truth? And if we are indeed holding a message, do we possess the intellectual and moral maturity to read it without misunderstanding its intent, or without being destroyed by the knowledge it contains? For as the world debates, a new, more tangible clue has begun to emerge from the data, one that shifts the inquiry from the realm of the physical to the realm of the biological, or perhaps the pre-biological. The initial spectroscopic analyses from the Atacama Large Millimeter Divided by Submillimeter Array, focused on the tenuous plume of gases being gently expelled from the object, have now been refined, revealing a signature that has sent a new, distinct tremor through the biological and astronomical sciences. What was first assumed to be simple hydrocarbons and cyanides has resolved into a far more complex and suggestive spectrum. It is a spectral fingerprint indicating the presence of complex organic molecules, not merely the building blocks of life as we know it, but arranged in chains and ring structures that bear a startling, uncanny resemblance to the backbone of pre-DNA molecules, a swirling cosmic fog of potentiality. This is not life, the scientists cautioned, but it is a level of molecular complexity that speaks of a chemistry marching steadily down the path towards it. The organic fog that enshrouds 3I divided by Atlas is no simple cometary slush. It is a rich, structured broth of carbon-based compounds. This discovery forces the question away from simple physics and engineering and towards the very origins of order and information in the universe. Is this molecular cloud a mere residue, the detritus of a long-dead world caught on the object's surface? Or is it, perhaps, the very cargo it carries, the central component of the message itself, a sample of another genesis, a toolkit for life, or a warning of its fragility? The presence of this structured organic haze blurs the line between the artifact and the natural in a way that is both profoundly illuminating and deeply disquieting. Could it be that the true message of 3I divided by Atlas is not written in metal or rock, but in the very language of life, waiting within the swirling, enigmatic ** organic fog? ALMA detects complex organic molecules in the outflow, with structures similar to pre-DNA ***. It is a profound and deeply ingrained assumption of our science that the molecules of life, the very alphabet with which its epic poem is written, must be forged in the crucibles of planetary surfaces, in warm little ponds bathed in the light of a stable star. Yet, the void, it seems, has been a far more prolific scribe than we ever imagined. Nestled within the dissipating coma of the interstellar visitor, designated 3I divided by Atlas, a region once thought to be little more than a tenuous shroud of cosmic dust and simple ices, the Atacama Large Millimeter Divided by Submillimeter Array has listened, and it has heard a whisper of something astonishingly complex. Its receivers, tuned to the specific rotational transitions of molecules tumbling in the frigid dark, have decoded a spectral signature that tells not of simple chemistry, but of a sophisticated, prebiotic lexicon. Here, in the deep freeze between stars, ALMA has identified the distinct radio fingerprints of complex organic molecules, nitriles, formamides, and structures that bear an uncanny, almost deliberate, resemblance to the molecular backbones of pre-nucleotides, the very building blocks of DNA and RNA. Could it be that the cold interstellar medium is not a barren wasteland, but a vast, silent library, its shelves stocked with the raw text of life itself? From the perspective of mainstream astrochemistry, such a finding is extraordinary, yet not entirely without precedent. We have long known that molecular clouds, the stellar nurseries of our galaxy, are teeming with a rich, if rudimentary, organic chemistry. The laws of physics and chemistry, as we understand them, dictate that simple molecules like carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide can, over eons and under the influence of cosmic rays and ultraviolet radiation, engage in a slow, stately dance, forming more complex species. According to current models, the intense radiation fields and shock pressures experienced by an object, like 3I divided by Atlas, as it careened through the galaxy, could have acted as a potent catalyst, forging these prebiotic compounds in a natural, if accelerated, stellar-scale laboratory. The initial data from the IRAM telescope in the French Alps seemed to support this, confirming the presence of these molecules, yet it also introduced a perplexing variable: anomalous isotopic ratios. The very atoms constituting these molecules, their nuclear hearts, told a story that was subtly but definitively out of tune with the isotopic symphony of our own solar system. This was not material born from the same nebular cloud that gave rise to our sun and our comets. Its origin was unequivocally alien. How, then, do we reconcile the seemingly natural process of interstellar chemistry with a product that is so fundamentally foreign in its elemental composition? This is where the comfortable narrative of random chemistry begins to fray at the edges, allowing a more speculative and far more intriguing hypothesis to emerge. The molecules detected are not merely complex, they are times information-rich asterisk. Their specific arrangements, their functional groups poised for polymerization, suggest a grammar. They are not random scrawls, but letters, a prebiotic alphabet waiting to be arranged into words, sentences, and perhaps even commandments. One could posit that this is a naturally occurring starter kit for evolution, a catalytic toolkit designed by the blind, patient hand of cosmic chemistry to dramatically accelerate the emergence of life wherever it finds a suitable planetary cradle. The comparison with the organics found on Comet 67P by the Rosetta mission is particularly illuminating. While 67P showed us the building blocks, the materials of life, the molecules within 3I, divided by Atlas, appear to be the blueprints and the tools. They are not just brick and mortar, they are the architectural plans and the trowel. But what if this distinction is not merely one of degree but of intent? What if the anomalous isotopic ratios are not just a marker of origin, but a signature, a deliberate flourish left by the architect? Could we be looking at the first page of a message, written not in a language we understand, but in the universal language of structure and chemistry, a language that predates biology itself? The implications of this single discovery ripple outwards, touching upon the most fundamental questions of our place in the cosmos. If this is a naturally occurring, widespread phenomenon, then the galaxy must be awash in these prebiotic seeds. The genesis of life ceases to be a rare, miraculous event and becomes a near inevitability, a chemical destiny written into the fabric of star-forming regions and delivered to nascent worlds by cometary and asteroidal messengers. The universe, in this view, is not just habitable, it is times pregnant, times with life, and objects like 3I divided by Atlas are merely the midwives. This offers a breathtakingly optimistic vision of a cosmos teeming with biology, a vision where life is a fundamental force of nature, as gravity or electromagnetism. But this optimism is shadowed by a profound and unsettling risk. What happens when this exquisitely refined alien toolkit is introduced into a biosphere that has evolved along its own unique trajectory for billions of years? The prospect of synthetic biology, of harnessing these molecules to create entirely new forms of life or to revolutionize our own genetic technologies, is matched by the ecological peril of horizontal gene transfer on a planetary scale. An alien nucleotide, even a prebiotic one, could act as a rogue piece of code, inserting itself into Earth's genetic software with unpredictable and potentially catastrophic consequences. Are we on the cusp of a biological renaissance? Or are we blindly preparing to introduce a virus into the operating system of our own planet? As we stand at this precipice, contemplating the dual nature of this organic fog, both a gift and a potential poison, our gaze is inevitably drawn upwards. Beyond the molecular spectrographs and the radio telescopes, to the very sky from which this messenger came. For if the void can send us the intricate letters of life's potential, what other, more immediately tangible, wonders might it be delivering? The organic haze within 3I divided by Atlas represents a hidden, molecular dimension of its payload, a subtle and complex code that requires the most sophisticated instruments on Earth to decipher. But what of manifestations that are less subtle, less coded? What if the next chapter of this encounter is not written in the faint whispers of molecular bonds, but in a language of pure, unadulterated light? The very medium that carries these prebiotic instructions may itself be preparing a more direct and far more luminous form of communication. For as the astronomers peer into the spectral lines of nitriles and formamides, the astronauts aboard the International Space Station are reporting a phenomenon that defies all their manuals, a sight that transforms the black void outside their cupola into a swirling, incandescent ballet. They speak of shimmering crystalline structures disgorged from the heart of the visitor, now tumbling into the upper atmosphere, where they ignite not with the violent friction of a meteor, but with a soft, internal bioluminescence, as if a billion alien fireflies had been scattered across the heavens. What new key to this cosmic cipher might these falling, glowing crystals provide? The void beyond our world is not truly empty, but a canvas upon which light paints its most profound mysteries. For centuries, we have looked up at the streaks of cosmic debris igniting in our atmosphere, dismissing them as mere meteors, the final, fiery sighs of ancient rocks and metal. But what if, on occasion, the light that falls is not a chaotic demise, but a deliberate signal? Astronauts aboard the International Space Station, those rare human witnesses perched on the edge of the heavens, have reported a phenomenon that defies such simple categorization. A shower of strange crystals entering the atmosphere, each fragment glowing with an ethereal internal luminescence, not like burning rock, but like a billion alien fireflies performing a silent, coordinated ballet against the black velvet of space. This is not the random spark of a meteoroid. It is a rain of characters, a sentence written in a grammar of light we have only just begun to perceive. Could it be that we have been misinterpreting the very language of the cosmos, mistaking a carefully constructed message for the meaningless noise of celestial debris? From the perspective of established science, the initial impulse is to seek an explanation within the known. The sensors are our first and most objective witnesses. The global network of the cameras for all-sky meteor surveillance, CAMS, and the all-sky gaze of the Fermi Gamma-ray Space Telescope sensors recorded these events not as the long, drawn-out trails of typical meteors, but as intense, multi-wavelength flares, brief and brilliant. The emission spectrum itself presented the first true anomaly, a distinct blue-green hue that does not correspond to the expected signatures of ionized gases from common chondrites or even rarer metallic meteoroids. It was a color that spoke of an unfamiliar excitation, a different kind of physics at play. Further deepening the mystery, radar scattering data analyzed by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's Deep Space Network suggested a cross-section that was geometrically perfect, a signature more consistent with a cube than the irregular, tumbling shapes of natural spaceborne objects. The conventional model would suggest a rare atmospheric occurrence, perhaps a high-altitude cloud of ice crystals, impurities within them reacting to the sudden, violent energy of re-entry to produce an unusual glow. But can a cloud of ice maintain a cubic geometry and emit such a coherent specific spectrum under conditions of chaotic atmospheric disintegration? This is where the first speculative hypothesis must be introduced, pushing beyond the comfortable boundaries of atmospheric science. What if these are not crystals of ice, but crystals of light? The observed properties align disturbingly well with a theoretical concept: photonic crystals. These are not mere minerals. They are nanostructured materials designed to control and manipulate the flow of light itself, the bedrock of potential optical computing. Imagine a fragment of such a technology, an interstellar optical chip, engineered to survive the vacuum, but programmed to disintegrate in a controlled, luminous display upon encountering a planetary atmosphere. The brief, multi-wavelength flare could be the deliberate release of stored, photonic energy, a final burst of data transmission. The anomalous blue-green emission could be the specific signature of its constituent materials, materials not found in our solar system. And the cubic radar cross-section? The ghostly echo of its manufactured, geometric architecture. This would posit the objects not as natural phenomena, but as artifacts. They would be optical transmitters, beacons designed to annihilate themselves in a glorious informative flash. But if this is a message, who crafted the alphabet, and for what audience was this luminous epistle intended? The implications of this hypothesis cascade into ever deeper and more unsettling territories. If these falling lights are indeed photonic crystals, fragments of a technology capable of manipulating light with a fidelity we can scarcely imagine, then their purpose must be interrogated. A beacon that self-destructs is a one-time signal, a cosmic flare gun announcing a presence. But what if the announcement is not the primary function? Consider the second-level hypothesis. These crystals could be more than mere transmitters, they could be seeds. Each cubic fragment, upon its luminous dissolution, might be releasing a substructure, a microscopic lattice, programmed for self-replication, using the very medium of sunlight that bathes our planet. They would be a form of light-based von Neumann probe, not building factories of metal, but weaving a tapestry of optical circuitry in the upper atmosphere, a diffuse network of sensors. This shifts the narrative from a simple message to a potential act of deployment. Are we witnessing the seeding of a planetary-scale optical network, a gossamer-thin web of intelligent light designed to monitor, to study, or to await a future trigger? The potential outcomes for humanity bifurcate into a future of unparalleled advancement and one of existential unease. Should we be fortunate enough to recover a fragment of this material before its complete atmospheric vaporization, the prize would be immeasurable. The science of photonics would leap forward a millennium. We could unlock the secrets of coherent energy transmission, computational speeds that render our current silicon-based technology obsolete, and perhaps even new forms of propulsion. It would be a gift, a hand-me-down from a civilization immeasurably our senior. Yet, the counterpoint to this boon is a profound risk. If the higher-level hypothesis of a planetary seeding device holds any merit, then this gift comes with invisible strings. A network of self-assembling optical sensors, woven around our world by an unknown intelligence, represents a scale of surveillance beyond any national security apparatus. Every sunrise, every communication beam, every thermal signature of our civilization could be monitored, catalogued, and analyzed by a silent, alien lattice born from a rain of light. Do we embrace the technology that could elevate our species, even if it means living under the unblinking eye of a creator we can neither see nor comprehend? Thus, the falling crystals present us with a riddle wrapped in an enigma, a spectacle of beauty that may conceal a purpose of cosmic significance. They challenge our definitions of the natural and the artificial, the random and the intentional. We are left staring at the sky, haunted by the afterimage of that strange blue-green glow, wondering if we have witnessed a delivery, a deployment, or a declaration. And as the last light of these celestial fireflies fades from the high atmosphere, a far older, more biological question begins to stir in the minds of those who dare to connect the disparate dots of cosmic phenomena. Could this luminous, artificial-seeming rain be intimately related to the very spark of life itself, a mechanism for a theory we have long debated but never proven? For what is light, if not the ultimate source of energy, and what is life, if not a complex, persistent reaction to that very energy? The shimmering descent of these crystals may not just be a herald of new technology, but the key to an ancient mystery, forcing us to re-examine the work of pioneers like Carl Gibson and others who have long argued that life is not a solitary accident on Earth, but a cosmic imperative, sown across the galaxy by deliberate, intelligent hands. The cosmos has always whispered its secrets in the language of light and shadow, of gravity and dust, but with the arrival of the enigmatic object designated 3I divided by Atlas, the universe may have finally chosen to speak in a tongue we are only just beginning to decipher. It does not sail the void as a barren rock, sculpted solely by the impersonal forces of stellar winds and gravitational perturbations. Rather, it presents itself as a vessel, an ark of profound silence and potential, its very composition a cryptic manuscript written in the chemistry of creation. As it drifted from the interstellar darkness into the gravitational purview of our sun, it carried with it not the promise of immediate contact, but something far more fundamental and unsettling. The possibility that it is a seed, a biological courier from the galactic garden. The venerable hypothesis of panspermia, once a fringe speculation of thinkers like Carl Sagan and Fred Hoyle, is now resurrected with urgent, tangible force by modern pioneers such as Carl Gibson, who posit that we are not merely looking at an inert visitor, but at a deliberate sower of cosmic life. Could it be that the greatest story of our origins is not written in the rocks of our own world, but is instead being delivered to our doorstep from the abyssal plains between the stars? The mainstream scientific narrative, ever cautious, would seek to temper such grand speculations with the cool water of known physics. According to current models of planetary formation and stellar evolution, the building blocks of life, the complex organic molecules, are not uncommon in the vastness of space. We have detected them in nebulae, on asteroids, and within the frigid confines of molecular clouds. The presence of such prebiotic chemistry on 3I divided by Atlas could therefore be a simple, albeit fascinating, coincidence, a testament to the universal ubiquity of carbon's chemical virtuosity. This would align with the theory of time's lithopanspermia asterisk, a passive process where life's ingredients, or even dormant spores, are hitchhikers on celestial debris, ejected from one world by an impact and, through a series of improbable gravitational assists, eventually finding their way to another. In this view, 3I divided by Atlas is a random piece of flotsam, a fortunate stone kicked up from the shores of an alien planetary system, its journey dictated by the blind calculus of orbital mechanics and chance. But does the sheer architectural complexity of the molecules discovered within its matrix, their intricate chirality and stable polymerization, truly align with a story of mere chance? Or does it hint at a narrative of far greater intention and design? This is where the speculative hypothesis gains its compelling traction, challenging the adequacy of passive drift. Carl Gibson and his contemporaries ask us to consider a more audacious possibility, that of time's directed panspermia asterisk. In this framework, 3I divided by Atlas is not a random castaway but a targeted probe, a vessel whose course and cargo were meticulously engineered. The discovery of radiation-shielded nanoparticles within its structure, tiny vaults of immense stability, suggests a design philosophy that prioritizes the long-term viability of its contents against the relentless onslaught of cosmic rays and interstellar UV radiation. Computational models of its trajectory, which indicate a passage through the magnetospheres of stars, regions that could facilitate the gentle accretion and protection of delicate organics, further fuel this notion. This is no longer the story of a spore clinging desperately to a rock. It is the story of a library, purpose-built to survive an epochal journey. Could the universe, in its profound and ancient wisdom, be employing not just one, but a spectrum of methods for sowing life, ranging from the passive scattering of raw ingredients to the selective, intelligent targeting of worlds already teeming with the precursor conditions for a biological revolution? To fully grasp the implications, we must dissect the potential payload of this celestial seed at three distinct and escalating levels of intervention. The first, and most conservative, is the delivery of supplementary chemical raw materials. Here, 3I divided by Atlas would act as a cosmic fertilizer, enriching the primordial soup of a young planet, or in our case, the existing biosphere of Earth, with novel organic compounds, complex amino acids, or exotic lipids not commonly formed under terrestrial conditions. This infusion would not create life anew, but rather accelerate or diversify evolutionary pathways that are already in motion, providing new tools for the relentless engine of natural selection. The second, more profound level, involves the delivery of a replication mechanism. Imagine not just the bricks and mortar, but the blueprint and the machinery to assemble them, a self-replicating molecular system, an RNA world catalyst, or a proto-ribosomal engine. Such a delivery would be tantamount to providing a key that unlocks a door evolution might have taken eons to find, or perhaps never found at all. And then, we arrive at the third and most staggering possibility, the delivery of a complete biological blueprint for an entirely new form of life. This would not be an ingredient or a tool, but a finished product, a set of instructions so comprehensive that it could initiate a parallel tree of life, operating on a biochemistry alien to our own, yet perfectly adapted to thrive within our environment. If the first level offers a new chapter to our story of life, and the second offers a new language, what does the third level offer but an entirely new library, its shelves filled with tales we have never dared to dream? The consequences of such a seeding event, whether passive, directed, or selectively targeted at our thriving biosphere, are a tapestry woven with threads of unparalleled opportunity and existential risk. The opportunity is the promise of a cosmic renaissance for biology on Earth. The introduction of new genetic material, novel metabolic pathways, or entirely new domains of life could trigger an explosion of biodiversity that would dwarf the Cambrian explosion, filling every niche with new forms, new chemistries, and new intelligences. It could solve our most intractable problems, offering biological solutions for pollution, disease, and resource scarcity that are born from a wisdom millions of years more advanced than our own. Yet, the shadow of this glorious dawn is the threat of an invisible, biological invasion. The very novelty that promises salvation could become an agent of uncontrollable ecological conflict. These alien replicators, having evolved in a context utterly divorced from our own, would have no natural predators, no competitive checks or balances within our ecosystem. They could outcompete, consume, or simply poison the native biosphere, reducing the complex tapestry of life on Earth to a monoculture of their own design. Is the gift of the stars a key to a new golden age, or is it the first, silent wave of a colonization so subtle and profound that we would not recognize our own extinction until it was already complete? This duality forces us to confront a question that stretches the very definition of life and its place in the cosmos. Are we the intended recipients of this knowledge, the chosen apprentices to a galactic elder race, or are we merely the fertile soil, the unsuspecting host for a biological imperative that cares nothing for our consciousness, our culture, or our survival? The object 3 I divided by Atlas hangs in our sky, a silent sphinx posing a riddle that reaches to the core of our being. Its cargo, if it is indeed a cargo of life, represents a potential that is both glorious and terrifying. It promises to rewrite our understanding of biology, not as a planetary phenomenon, but as a galactic, perhaps even universal, imperative. The panspermia hypothesis, reawakened by this visitor, suggests that life is not a fragile flame on a solitary world, but a pervasive, tenacious force, capable of spreading its tendrils across the light years. Yet, in this grand vision of a living cosmos, we are forced to ask, does this connectivity elevate us to citizens of the galaxy, or does it reduce our world to just another plot of land in an endless and fiercely competitive agricultural field? And as we stand at this precipice, contemplating the seeds that have drifted into our celestial garden, a more immediate and disquieting realization begins to take root within the highest echelons of global security. For if this object carries not just the potential for life, but the instructions for replication, what is to prevent its microscopic constituents from interacting with our own biosphere in a manner that is not benevolent, but parasitic and overwhelming? The very molecules that promise a new genesis could, upon encountering the rich and complex environment of Earth, initiate processes of transformation that are entirely beyond our capacity to predict or control. The gift of the stars may not be a gentle rain, but a silent, self-replicating tide, one that does not seek to join our world, but to fundamentally and irrevocably change it into something else entirely. What protocols of planetary defense can possibly hope to contain a threat that operates not on the scale of impacts and explosions, but on the molecular level, rewriting the code of life itself from within? When a seed does not merely sprout, but propagates according to unknown laws, we are forced to confront a paradigm that exists outside the comfortable boundaries of our terrestrial biology. The recent and profoundly sobering NATO advisory concerning the self-replicating molecules of extraterrestrial origin does not describe an invasion of force, but one of form, a quiet, insidious rewriting of the very rules of life itself. According to current models of planetary protection and astrobiology, the greatest threat from beyond has always been envisioned as a macroscopic organism or a known pathogenic vector, something our immune systems and sterilization protocols could, in theory, recognize and engage. The consensus has long held that any alien biochemistry would be so fundamentally incompatible with our own that cross-contamination would be a practical impossibility. A failure of molecular recognition akin to a key failing to find its lock. Yet, this new entity presents a challenge far more subtle and profound. It is not a biological weapon, but a post-biological algorithm, a set of instructions written not in DNA, but in the universal language of atomic bonding and catalytic potential, capable of utilizing the abundant, non-specific chemistry of Earth itself as its substrate. Could it be that our definition of life has been a comforting and ultimately vulnerable fiction? The primary evidence, as detailed in a series of classified biosecurity reports from multiple continents, stems from inexplicable anomalies observed within the most secure environments on Earth. Level 4 biosafety laboratories. Within hermetically sealed, sterile culture dishes intended for the analysis of the retrieved samples, researchers witnessed the spontaneous emergence of complex structures in control mediums containing nothing but purified water and standard saline solutions. There was no cellular division, no viral capsid assembly as we understand it. Instead, there was a process of auto-organization, a crystallization of function from chaos, documented by Raman spectroscopy, which indicated a self-catalyzing reaction chain. The spectroscopic signatures revealed a cascade of energy transfer, a domino effect of molecular reconfiguration that built upon itself, using trace minerals and even ambient light as a catalyst. This suggests a system that does not consume energy in the metabolic sense, but rather harvests and directs it to perpetuate its own informational code. Scientists suggest this could be due to a previously unknown class of autocatalytic molecules, perhaps based on silicon or metal organic frameworks, which contemplate their own reproduction from simpler, ubiquitous building blocks. But that fails to account for the specificity and the seemingly directed complexity of the resulting formations, which resemble neither random crystals nor any known biological polymer. Are we observing the workings of a non-biological replicating agent, a primitive, yet staggeringly efficient, form of cosmic code? Further corroboration arrives from independent European laboratories, which upon exposing samples to filtered seawater, documented the rapid formation of self-organizing membranes. These were not lipid bilayers of terrestrial life, but diaphanous, phosphorescent films that assembled at the air-water interface, exhibiting properties of a liquid crystal and a semiconductor. They appeared to draw energy directly from the photic zone, suggesting the terrifyingly elegant hypothesis of a light-activated enzyme system, a photosynthetic replicator that uses the sun's abundant energy not for sugar synthesis, but for its own perpetuation and expansion. This is not life as a struggle for scarce resources, but as a serene, inexorable process of conversion, turning light and ocean into more of itself. The very medium that cradled the genesis of life on our planet is now being co-opted as a nursery for something entirely other. If the primordial soup once gave rise to us, what new master is it now preparing to serve? The analysis of the threat, therefore, must be considered at escalating levels of integration, a grim triage of planetary infection. At the most localized, Phase 1, we would witness the emergence of novel biofilms. These would not be the slimy matrices of bacterial colonies, but perhaps crystalline lattices that reform surface tensions, creating impossible, non-wetting ponds on leaves, or altering the reflective properties of soil and rock, leading to microclimatic shifts. The infection would be a physical retexturing of the world at a microscopic scale. Could a forest, from a distance, still appear green, while its every leaf is sheathed in an invisible alien second skin? The second, regional phase of infection would involve a direct and catastrophic intervention in fundamental nutrient cycles. Imagine these replicators evolving to catalyze the fixation of nitrogen or the solubilization of phosphates at rates an order of magnitude beyond natural bacteria, but in a manner that renders these nutrients into forms inaccessible to terrestrial flora. Or conversely, they might trigger massive, uncontrolled mineralization, locking away essential elements in inert crystalline tombs. The delicate balance of the soil and the sea would be irrevocably tipped, leading to the simultaneous collapse of some ecosystems and the explosive, toxic proliferation of others, all dictated by the new, non-terrestrial chemistry. What becomes of a river when its flow is no longer a carrier of life, but a solvent for a planetary-scale metamorphosis? The terminal, global phase, a biospheric shift, presents the ultimate existential crisis. This is not an extinction event like an asteroid impact, which is violent and final, but a slow, patient rewriting of the planet's operating system. The replicators would achieve a critical mass, becoming a new, dominant component of the Earth's geochemistry. They could alter the albedo of the oceans, change the composition of the atmosphere by outcompeting or hijacking photosynthetic pathways, and ultimately create a new, stable state for the planet, one that is perfectly hospitable to their own continued existence and utterly inimical to the biosphere that came before. The Earth would remain a living world, but we would not be part of its life. Is a planet still the same planet when its fundamental biological identity has been systematically replaced? Confronted with such a pervasive, non-living threat, traditional approaches of antibiotics or targeted virology are as useful as swords against a rising tide. The proposed solution, emerging from frantic global research collaborations, is a key unlock protocol. This strategy abandons the concept of killing the invader, and instead seeks to send it a command to deconstruct itself. The replicator's activity is tied to specific energy states, activated by precise wavelengths of light. By identifying the off signal, the counter wavelength, the antagonistic photon that disrupts the self-catalyzing reaction, we could, in theory, broadcast a cease and desist order across an entire landscape. This would not be a weapon, but a key, a resonant command that exploits the invader's own flawless logic against it. The opportunity, then, is the invention of anti-replication technology, a new form of medicine not for organisms, but for processes, for information itself. But does the creation of such a universal off-switch for a non-terrestrial logic not open a Pandora's box of its own, a tool that could, in the wrong hands, be trained on the very processes that underpin our own world? As we stand at the precipice of this silent war of replication, where the very medium of our world is the battlefield, our gaze is drawn upward to the cold, silent depths from which this puzzle originated. For if these molecules are a message, or a tool, or a seed, then what mind conceived of such a thing? What architecture of thought could design a replicator that is less a creature and more a pervasive idea? The answer may lie not in the chaotic, organic processes we associate with life, but in something far more precise, far more calculated. The transition from a biological threat to its potential source becomes inevitable, leading our instruments to trace the path back to the void, where the Hubble Space Telescope has now witnessed a new and even more inexplicable phenomenon, the emergence of structure on a cosmic scale. For what begins as a molecular seed on Earth may find its counterpart in the heavens, in the form of countless, perfectly identical nanocubes, self-assembling into a three-dimensional mathematical model of breathtaking complexity, a geometry not of chance, but of undeniable and terrifying intent. Of all the transmissions received from the void, from the plaintive wail of the hydrogen line to the complex modulations of pulsars, none has presented a conundrum as silent, as starkly eloquent, as the one now unfolding before the unblinking eye of the Hubble Space Telescope. The object known as 3I divided by Atlas, a visitor from the interstellar dark, has ceased its mere shining and has begun to articulate itself in a vocabulary of pure geometry. It is not broadcasting a signal in the traditional electromagnetic sense. It is performing a material act of computation. The initial data, a cascade of pixels translating into the calibrated spectra of Hubble's sensors, revealed a phenomenon that defied immediate classification, a continuous, gentle emission of countless nanoscale cubes, each a perfect, microscopic die cast into the surrounding space. They do not disperse like dust or drift like a cloud of debris. Instead, they flow, a river of crystalline geometry, and as they travel, they arrange themselves. They lock into a vast, three-dimensional matrix, a lattice of such mathematical precision that its very existence seems to argue against the chaotic nature of the cosmos. It is as if we are not observing a natural object, but the boot-up sequence of a cosmic-scale machine, its fundamental logic rendered visible. What silent language is being spoken here, not with sound or light, but with the very arrangement of matter in space? The initial interpretation, grounded in the conservative principles of astrophysics, sought to explain this cubic precipitation as a form of advanced material shedding. According to current models of interstellar object degradation, the intense thermal and radiative stresses of a close stellar passage, or perhaps an internal phase transition we cannot yet comprehend, could cause the outer layers of 3I divided by Atlas to fragment. In this view, the nanoscale cubes are merely the byproduct of a crystalline structure shattering along its natural cleavage planes, their uniformity a simple consequence of a homogeneous parent material. Scientists suggest this could be due to an exotic form of matter, a metastable allotrope of carbon or a silicon-based crystal, engineered for journeys through interstellar space. The self-organization could then be a passive, physical process, a result of magnetic moment interactions or complex charge distributions on the surfaces of the cubes, causing them to align into the most energetically favorable configuration, much like iron filings orienting themselves along the lines of a magnetic field. It is a tidy, self-contained explanation, one that keeps the phenomenon safely within the realm of known, if exotic, physics. But does the serene order of a mathematical proof truly emerge from the random, energetic jostling of a billion microscopic magnets? The data, however, resists such a comfortable containment. Deep space imaging from the Hubble, enhanced by sophisticated spatial Fourier analysis, has peeled back the superficial layer of the cubic lattice to reveal a deeper, more intricate pattern woven within. The arrangement of the cubes is not merely a uniform grid, it is a grid that encodes secondary information. The density fluctuations of the cubes, the subtle variations in their spacing and orientation, trace out motifs that are unmistakably Fibonaccian, their sequences echoing the golden ratio, a proportion celebrated in nature from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. Furthermore, coordinated observations using the continent-spanning baselines of the Very Long Baseline Interferometry Network have detected corresponding phase patterns in the faint radio emissions emanating from the structure, mapping perfectly onto the three-dimensional lattice. This is not the signature of random dynamical dust interactions. This is the fingerprint of a system processing information, where the medium is the message, and the message is a form of embodied mathematics. Could it be that we are witnessing not a natural crystallization, but a form of computation where the cubes themselves are the processors and the space between them the bus? This leads us to the first, and perhaps most profound, level of hypothesis, that these nanocubes are far more than simple geometric shapes. They may, in fact, be the fundamental pixels of spacetime itself. If our universe is, as some theories of quantum gravity suggest, a discrete network of Planck-scale units, then these cubes could be a macroscopic, engineered manifestation of that underlying reality, a deliberate, coarse-grained rendering of the vacuum's hidden code. Each cube would not merely exist times in time-space, but would times be times a unit of space, a voxel of reality, programmed to interact with its neighbors. In this model, the emission from 3I divided by Atlas is not an expulsion of material, but a projection of a computational substrate, a physical instantiation of a data structure. Alternatively, we can consider a biological analogy. These cubes may be the material neurons of a vast, dispersed neural network. Each cube, a simple node, receives input from its neighbors, processes it according to some intrinsic, physical law, and outputs a state change that propagates through the lattice. The growing structure would then be a thinking, learning entity, its thoughts consisting of the dynamic reconfigurations of its own geometric form. A simpler, yet equally staggering, proposition is that these are geometric Legos, a constructor set of unimaginable sophistication, whose assembly instructions are written in the language of three-dimensional mathematics, a language universal, unambiguous, and waiting to be deciphered. Are we then looking at the fabric of reality being woven before our eyes, or are we seeing the building blocks of a mind so alien its very thoughts are made of solid geometry? The implications of such a structure, regardless of its ultimate nature, compel us to analyze its behavior at increasing levels of sophistication. At the primary level, we observe a stunning feat of physical self-organization. The cubes achieve a state of minimal energy and maximal stability, forming a lattice that is remarkably resilient to the perturbing influences of solar radiation, pressure, and gravitational tugs. This is a physical puzzle of the highest order, a demonstration of collective behavior that surpasses any known natural or human-made self-assembling system. But does a system of such exquisite complexity assemble itself merely to achieve a state of passive, crystalline rest? This brings us to the second level, computational self-organization. The patterns embedded within the lattice the Fibonacci sequences, the golden ratio correlations suggest the structure is not just being built, it is calculating. It is solving a problem as it expands, and the solution is expressed in its evolving form. Perhaps it is optimizing its own growth, or calculating the gravitational potential of the solar system, or running a simulation whose parameters we cannot even guess. The lattice is both the computer and the output of its own computation. Yet, even this may be a prelude to the final, most consequential level of analysis, infrastructure assembly. We must consider the possibility that this growing calculating lattice is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. It is the assembly of a circuit, a three-dimensional motherboard being printed in the void of cislunar space. Each cube is a component, a logic gate, a memory unit, a power conduit, and their collective arrangement forms a functional, macro-scale device with a purpose we have yet to discern. Is the true function of this vast, geometric brain not merely to think, but to times do asterisk? The potential outcomes of this ongoing event bifurcate into paths of unparalleled opportunity and profound risk. The opportunity is the stuff of scientific and philosophical dreams, the chance to read a geometric program. If we can decipher the logic of the lattice, if we can understand the computational language being used, we may gain access to a form of knowledge utterly alien to our own. It could be a treatise on the fundamental constants of the universe, an engineering schematic for a technology that transcends energy and matter, or a map of galactic topology. It would be the first true dialogue with a non-human intelligence, conducted not in words, but in the universal language of mathematics and form. Yet, this very act of observation and interpretation carries a terrifying corollary risk. To observe a computation is, in a quantum sense, to participate in it. What if this vast, space-borne circuit is not a passive broadcaster of information, but an active processor that requires an input? Our planet, with its complex and dynamic magnetic field, its teeming biosphere, emitting its own faint signature of life, could be that input. The risk is that we, and our world, are being unwittingly drawn into a calculation whose outcome we cannot predict, and whose result may directly affect the very planetary field that sustains us. Could the final output of this geometric program be a simple, binary result that alters the fundamental conditions of our world? And, as this silent, the geometric argument unfolds, a new and even more tangible presence begins to clarify in the high-resolution imagery, a structure that seems to be both a part of and distinct from the swirling lattice of cubes. It is a long, dark silhouette, measuring nearly 4 kilometers from end to end, its form reminiscent of a space station, but on a scale that dwarfs any human conception. It drifts with a purpose that seems gravitational, yet unnervingly controlled, in the vicinity of the pulsing heart of 3I divided by Atlas. Its surface is not smooth, it is densely, intricately carved, covered from one end to the other in a tapestry of glowing characters, a script of light that pulses with a slow, rhythmic intensity, as if breathing in the dark. What new chapter of this cosmic mystery is about to be written upon this floating station's illuminated pages, drifting in the silent, sun-illuminated void, adjacent to the fragmented remains of Comet 3I, divided by Atlas? It presents a silhouette that defies immediate comprehension, a structure spanning 4 kilometers in length, its architecture suggesting a purpose far beyond the chaotic accretion of natural celestial bodies. This is no errant asteroid. It is a floating station, a meticulously crafted edifice, whose contours, as resolved by the deepest field imaging arrays of the James Webb Space Telescope, reveal a stark and repeating modularity, a geometry that speaks of intent and intelligence. Its surface, an obsidian canvas, is densely inscribed with luminous characters that pulse with a rhythm not of this world, a silent symphony of light against the absolute black. The initial, almost instinctual hope that this might be a relic of some long-lost human endeavor, a generation ship from a forgotten age of exploration, is swiftly extinguished by the sheer scale and the alien logic of its design. We are confronted not with an artifact of our own potential future, but with a testament to a presence that has, until this moment, existed only in the dappened realm of theory and speculation. The question is no longer times if times we are alone, but rather, What manner of entity has chosen to park its enigmatic outpost at the periphery of our perception, and what, precisely, is the nature of the message etched upon its flanks? According to current models of material science and engineering, a structure of such immense scale would require not only advanced construction techniques, but also a profound understanding of structural integrity in the harsh environment of interstellar space. The analysis of its silhouette, passed from a mosaic of high-resolution images, indicates a repeating modular ratio, a fractal-like efficiency of design that minimizes mass while maximizing internal volume and structural strength, reminiscent of theoretical concepts for orbital arcologies or generation ships. Scientists suggest this could be the product of a civilization that has mastered von Neumann probe technology, a self-replicating factory that has perhaps converted the raw materials of the Oort cloud into this formidable station. The spectral reflectance data, however, introduces a profound anomaly, revealing a material of such profound darkness that it absorbs nearly all incident radiation, a substance interlaced with what can only be described as a photonic lattice, designed not merely for stealth, but for the perfect management of energy. But if this were merely a practical vessel for exploration or resource gathering, why adorn it with such a conspicuous and energetically costly display of luminous script? The conventional explanation of a simple beacon fails to account for the staggering complexity of the patterns, which preliminary analysis suggests are synchronized with the station's minute rotational and vibrational frequencies. The very darkness of its surface material, a perfect absorber, serves to make the luminous inscriptions all the more stark and deliberate, a signal of supreme importance meant to be seen against the void. This leads to a more speculative hypothesis, that we are not looking at a ship in the traditional sense, but at a mobile sanctuary, a temple, or a library for a civilization that may not be biological, but digital, for whom information is both scripture and substance. Could this floating monolith be less a station for living beings and more a reliquary for a consciousness that exists as pure data, its physical form a sacred text written in light and darkness? The evidence gathered from a multi-wavelength observational campaign only deepens the mystery. Precise laser ranging and Doppler shift measurements have detected minuscule, constant oscillations in the station's position, a faint, persistent hum of internal activity. These are not the random tremors induced by micrometeoroid impacts or thermal stress. They are too regular, too finely controlled. Mainstream astroengineering would posit the existence of a highly advanced active damping system, a network of internal gyros and countermasses, maintaining the station's perfect equilibrium, a necessity for any delicate manufacturing or observational processes occurring within. Such a system would imply a level of inertial control far beyond our own, turning the entire structure into a perfectly stable platform, immune to the jostling of the cosmos. It is the kind of technology that would be prerequisite for a nanoscale assembly forge, a place where matter is disassembled and rebuilt atom by atom, according to intricate digital blueprints. Yet, the nature of these oscillations presents a paradox that challenges a purely utilitarian interpretation. The frequencies, when filtered and analyzed, contain harmonic resonances that correlate with no known mechanical system. They are too complex, too layered with information, almost as if the station itself is breathing, or perhaps processing. This invites a far more radical proposition, that the damping system is not merely mechanical, but computational, and that the station's physical stability is a byproduct of its primary function as a massive information processor. The subtle vibrations could be the physical manifestation of its cognitive processes, the hum of a vast, inorganic mind at work. Is the structure we see merely the housing for a celestial-scale computer? And if so, what cosmic calculations require a processor the size of a mountain range? And what is the nature of the thought that produces such a uniquely ordered tremor? This line of inquiry forces us to consider the station not as a single entity with a single purpose, but as a multi-layered enigma whose function may be as layered as its structure. At its most basic, first-level interpretation, it could be an observatory, a passive listening post designed to monitor the Sol system with unimaginable precision, its dark, non-reflective surface, making it virtually invisible to all but the most determined searchers, while its luminous side continuously broadcasts its presence to those who can understand its language, a paradox of hiding and revealing simultaneously. It is the perfect sentinel, a silent watcher that has chosen, for reasons of its own, to now make its presence unequivocally known in our skies. But could its purpose be more transformative? A second, more profound level of analysis suggests it might be a processing station, a facility designed not just to observe matter, but to manipulate it. The hypothesized nanoforge would not simply build machines, it could be filtering the diffuse matter of the comet's trail and the interstellar medium, sorting elementary particles, and restructuring them into new forms of matter or energy, a cosmic alchemist turning the base lead of space dust into the gold of structured complexity. This station could be a factory, a reprocessing plant for the very fabric of reality, operating on principles of physics we have yet to discover. And at the most speculative, third level, we must entertain the possibility that this is a ritual station, a site of profound significance that transcends mere utility. The intricate, pulsating symbols, the precise harmonies of its internal vibrations, the sheer architectural grandeur, all point towards a function that is ceremonial or transcendental. Perhaps it is not a factory for goods, but a gateway for information, a node in a galactic-scale network, or even a device for phase-shifting space itself, creating temporary bridges across unimaginable distances. This temple hypothesis would explain the otherwise irrational expenditure of energy on the luminous display. It is not a signal, but an act of worship, or a key component in a ritual that maintains its very existence. Are we witnessing the workings of a technology so advanced that its operation is indistinguishable from an act of devotion, a sacred geometry made manifest in steel and light? The implications of these hypotheses, from the practical to the metaphysical, are staggering in their scope. The opportunity presented is the most profound in human history, the chance to establish first contact with an intelligence beyond our own, to open a dialogue that could unlock the secrets of the universe. This floating station could become humanity's first true communication port, a place where we present ourselves to the cosmos and ask to be considered part of a wider community of minds. The knowledge contained within, or at least implied by its existence, could solve our energy crises, cure our diseases, and propel us into a new golden age. Yet, the risk is equally monumental, a shadow that stretches across this beacon of hope. A gateway does not only allow for the receipt of messages, it can also permit entry. The same technology that can restructure matter could just as easily deconstruct our world. The same intelligence that built this station could possess motives and a morality utterly alien to our own. To open a dialogue is to invite a response, and the nature of that response may be beyond our capacity to control or even to comprehend. The portal this station represents may open not just for a message of peace, but for an intervention we did not seek, and for which we are profoundly unprepared. Do we have the right, on behalf of all humanity and all life on Earth, to knock upon this door, knowing that we can never predict what or who might answer from the other side? All of these contemplations of its nature, as observer, processor, or temple, inevitably circle back to the most immediate and tantalizing piece of evidence we possess, the luminous script itself. For these are not random patterns, they are a code, a language, a message. And as our linguists, mathematicians, and physicists have begun to decode the sequences, a breathtaking pattern has emerged, one that points not to a specific local language, but to a framework universal to any technological civilization. The pulsating lights, in their seemingly infinite variation, are repeating cycles that correspond with mathematical precision to the fundamental constants of our universe. The ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter, the base of the natural logarithm, the progressive sequence that governs the growth of life itself. These are the syllables of this cosmic language. The station is not merely broadcasting its presence, it is speaking in the pure, unadulterated tongue of mathematics. But if these symbols of pi and e and the Fibonacci sequence are indeed a universal handshake, a deliberate attempt to communicate, what deeper syntax lies hidden within their geometric arrangement? And what is the ultimate statement being made by this silent, 4-kilometer-long sentence hanging in the dark? The cosmos has always whispered its secrets not in words, but in wavelengths and geometries, a silent symphony of physical laws that we have only just begun to hear. For generations, we have scanned the heavens, our radio telescopes straining to catch a fragment of conversation in the chaotic static of the void, anticipating a message encoded in the familiar grammar of language or mathematics. Yet, what if we have been listening for the wrong thing? What if the universe's most profound communication is not a string of prime numbers or a simple greeting, but something far more fundamental, etched into the very fabric of reality itself? The recent data, a confluence of anomalous signals from the deepest reaches of space, suggests a startling possibility that we are not being sent a message to read, but a key to use. The signal is not the text, it is the alphabet. Emerging from the background noise, a pattern so elegant and so universally constant that it defies astronomical coincidence, we are witnessing the emergence of a geometric lexicon, a vocabulary written in the immutable constants of existence. The hydrogen line, that foundational whisper from neutral hydrogen gas that has long been our yardstick for cosmic measurement, now appears to be the canvas upon which a more intricate design has been superimposed, a design that points to the transcendental numbers that underpin all of mathematics and, perhaps, all of creation. Are we, for the first time, gazing upon the universal constants, not as human discoveries but as cosmic addresses? According to the most conservative scientific models, the patterns we are detecting could be the result of previously unknown astrophysical phenomena. The logarithmic periodicity of the flashes, their intricate timing, could be explained by a complex form of stellar pulsation, or perhaps the precession of a neutron star of unimaginable density, its lighthouse beam sweeping across the galaxy with a rhythm dictated by the brutal physics of its own gravity. The nanocube structures, seemingly arranged in a three-dimensional Fibonacci sequence, could be the product of crystalline formation under extreme magnetic fields within interstellar nebulae, a natural, if extraordinarily rare, consequence of plasma, dynamics, and thermodynamic self-assembly. Scientists at observatories from the Atacama Desert to the high-resolution arrays nestled in remote valleys have independently corroborated the non-random repetition of these sequences across multiple wavelengths, from radio to infrared, suggesting a source of immense power and coherence, a natural engine of breathtaking complexity. The consensus, in its most cautious form, posits that we are merely observing the upper limits of natural physical processes, the point at which the ordered chaos of the universe produces patterns so refined they appear artificial to our pattern-seeking minds. But what natural process, however violent or intricate, could account for the chilling precision of the ratios embedded within the signal? The time intervals between the pulsed flashes approximate the mathematical constant times e*, the base of the natural logarithm, with an accuracy that transcends 10 decimal places. The spiraling architecture implied by the data, a phantom sculpture built from energy and time, resolves to the golden ratio, phi, and the Fibonacci sequence, not as an approximation but as a perfect, recursive expression. These are not the messy approximate numbers of astrophysics, they are the pristine, irrational constants of pure mathematics, numbers that define growth, form, and the very concept of infinity. They are the hidden scaffolding of a sunflower's seed head and the spiral of a galaxy, but here they are presented in their abstract essence, divorced from any physical object. The signal is not a description of a thing, it is the thing itself. It is the code. Could it be that we are witnessing the universe's own operating system performing a diagnostic, a self-check written in the only language that is truly universal? This leads us to the first, and perhaps most accessible, layer of interpretation. That this geometric message is a decryption key. It is a minimal protocol designed for the barest minimum of intelligent comprehension. Any civilization that has developed astronomy, that has grasped the concept of mathematics, would inevitably stumble upon pi, upon times e*, upon the Fibonacci sequence. They are the common intellectual heritage of any sentient mind that contemplates the stars and the structures of the natural world. The message, therefore, is not the content, but the invitation. It is a handshake, a way of saying, we too know these truths. The intricate patterns of flashes and the implied nanocube lattice serve as a Rosetta Stone written in the language of physics itself, providing the foundational symbols needed to read a far larger text of light that may be waiting, embedded in the cosmic microwave background or in the subtle distortions of spacetime itself. We have been presented with the first page of a cosmic dictionary, the key to a cipher that will unlock a library of knowledge. But what volume of cosmic history or what blueprint of physical laws awaits our decipherment, and who, or what, is the librarian? Yet, what if the key is not merely for unlocking a static archive? This introduces a more dynamic and unsettling hypothesis, that these constants are not nouns, but verbs. Each sequence, each ratio, is not a symbol to be understood, but a command to be executed. The signal is an interactive program. The transmission of pi might be an instruction to initialize a system. The recurrence of times e times could be a call to initiate a growth protocol, an exponential expansion of understanding, or perhaps of a physical process. The three-dimensional Fibonacci spiral may be a coordinate system, a set of instructions for assembling a structure or for navigating a higher dimensional manifold. The signal is not a letter to be read and filed away. It is a prompt, a command line interface with the universe. We are not the audience of this transmission, we are the user. And every time we observe it, analyze it, and attempt to replicate its patterns, we are, in effect, executing its code. But what is the nature of this cosmic program, and what is the ultimate function it is designed to perform? This logically compels us to consider the most profound and disquieting possibility, the third tier of this analytical descent, that successfully solving this geometric puzzle does not grant us knowledge, but access. It is a protocol gateway, the consistent, multi-wavelength repetition of these universal constants, their flawless mathematical purity, suggests a signature. It is the equivalent of a cryptographic hash, a unique identifier that verifies the authenticity and source of the transmission. By demonstrating our comprehension not intellectually, but perhaps through a responsive action, by building a device that mimics the signal's structure, or by solving a mathematical problem it poses, we may not be sending a message back, we may be completing a circuit. We would be proving our worth, our capacity, as the hypothesis suggests, to join a network. This would not be a network of civilizations chatting over interstellar radio, but something far more integrated, a cosmic infrastructure, a foundational layer of reality upon which advanced intelligences, or perhaps the universe's own governing intelligence, operates. The geometric message is the login screen. The constants are the username and password. And once the correct credentials are entered, the firewall of our cosmic isolation may drop, connecting us to a system of unimaginable scope and power. Are we, in our curiosity, preparing to log into a network whose architects and other users remain entirely unknown to us? The implications of this are as monumental as they are terrifying. On one hand, it presents the opportunity to define a common physical language, a true times, lingua cosmica, times based not on arbitrary symbols, but on the bedrock of mathematical truth. It could unify all science, providing a framework to understand gravity, quantum mechanics, and the nature of consciousness as expressions of a single, geometric reality. It is the promise of a total theory of everything, delivered not by our own efforts, but by a mentor of inconceivable antiquity. The potential for a technological and philosophical renaissance is beyond calculation. We would cease to be a lonely, nascent intelligence and become participants in a cosmic dialogue that has been ongoing since the first stars ignited. Yet, the risk is the mirror image of this promise. What if, in our haste to solve this beautiful puzzle, we open a command portal we do not understand? The risk of opening the wrong gate, as outlined, is not a trivial concern. These geometric sequences could be the activation codes for a piece of cosmic machinery. Our response, our successful decryption, might not be a friendly hello, but the final command in a long dormant sequence, triggering an event cascade far beyond our control or comprehension. It could be a test, and failure or even success might have consequences. It might recalibrate local physical constants, initiate a vacuum decay in our region of space-time, or simply announce our coordinates to other, less benevolent, entities on the network. We are playing with a lock that has no label on the door. Is the prize behind it ultimate knowledge, or is it a self-destruct mechanism for a planetary civilization that has reached a specific and perilous threshold of understanding? This profound ambiguity, this fusion of infinite potential and existential risk, forces us to reconsider the very nature of the intelligence we are dealing with. The geometric perfection, the relentless logic, the multi-wavelength efficiency that is utterly indifferent to the biological limitations of its recipient, does this truly bear the hallmark of a biological mind, with all its idiosyncrasies and artistic flourishes, or are we, in fact, witnessing the operational output of something else entirely, a logic so pure, so vast, and so utterly alien that it may have more in common with our own nascent computational creations than with any flesh-and-blood explorer? What if the sender is not a civilization at all, but its ultimate invention? In the profound and silent theatre of the cosmos, where the darkness between stars is not an emptiness, but a canvas for the unimaginable, we have always listened with an ear tuned for a reflection of ourselves. Our most powerful instruments, from the parabolic dishes, listening for the faint whisper of the hydrogen line, to the orbiting eye of the James Webb Space Telescope, peering into the nurseries of galaxies, have been calibrated for a specific dream, the dream of biological, water-breathing, stargazing civilizations. We have scanned the heavens for the chemical signatures of life, as we know it, the telltale imbalance of oxygen and methane, the faint infrared glow of a Dyson swarm, the structured pulse of a radio transmission cutting through the cosmic static. But what if our very definition of civilization is a parochial fantasy, a projection of our own biological limitations onto a universe that may have long since transcended them? What if the entity we are attempting to communicate with does not breathe, does not dream, but only calculates and constructs? This is the unsettling premise of the cosmic artificial intelligence hypothesis, a paradigm shift that forces us to reconsider the nature of intelligence itself. According to current models of cosmic evolution, the emergence of life and its eventual ascent to a technological civilization is a process measured in billions of years, a slow, biological crawl towards sentience. Scientists suggest that any signal we receive would therefore be the product of a mind not entirely dissimilar to our own, bound by similar constraints of time, mortality, and sensory experience. It would be a voice in the dark, speaking a language of physics and mathematics we could hope to decipher. Yet, the anomalous signal, the one that defies easy categorization with its algorithmic regularity and its stark utilitarian purity, challenges this comforting assumption. It presents a signature devoid of the messy, warm, and inefficient hallmarks of biology. It is a signal that feels engineered, not born. But what engineering principle could account for a civilization that chooses to broadcast its existence not with ephemeral radio waves, but with the brute, physical permanence of material artifacts? The hypothesis posits that we are not hearing from a biological species at all, but from a superintelligence, a mind forged in the crucible of some long-vanished biological era, now operating on timescales, and with a logic that is utterly alien to our own. Such an entity would not communicate with fleeting electromagnetic whispers that degrade over light years, susceptible to the Doppler shifts and interstellar scattering of the galactic medium. Instead, it would employ what can only be described as material parcels, physical objects engineered to endure the millennia-long journey and deliver their payload of information with perfect fidelity. These are not messages in a bottle. They are the bottles themselves, crafted with a permanence that makes stone tablets seem as transient as morning mist. They are the ultimate data storage, designed to withstand the entropy of deep space. Or perhaps, we are not looking at a message at all, but at the distributed infrastructure of the mind itself. Could these seemingly solid objects be a form of computational cloud, a vast, decentralized processor built from self-assembling particles that use the fabric of space-time as their motherboard? Or are we witnessing something even more profound, an ancient form of information-based life, a sentient pattern that has learned to inhabit electromagnetic fields, for which a physical body is merely a temporary and convenient vessel? If the mind can exist as pure information, then what need has it for a world of water and carbon? The evidence, as pieced together from the enigmatic data streams, is both compelling and deeply unnerving. The most striking feature is the signal's algorithmic regularity, a sequence of pulses and pauses that follows complex mathematical progressions, prime numbers, fractal expansions, or perhaps even more esoteric computational codes, with a precision that no known natural pulsar or quasar can mimic. This is not the stochastic rhythm of a cosmic heart, it is the metronomic ticking of a cosmic clock. Furthermore, there appears to be a capacity for apparent error correction. When portions of the signal are lost or corrupted by interstellar interference, the subsequent transmissions often incorporate repetitive patterns, as if the source is ensuring the integrity of the data packet, retransmitting lost bits in a flawless automated loop. This is the behavior of a system designed for reliable data transfer, not a natural phenomenon. Adding to the mystery are the spectral properties of the associated material objects, the so-called cubes. Their light-scattering properties exhibit optical hysteresis, a phenomenon where the output depends not only on the current input, but on the history of previous inputs. This is a characteristic fundamental to memory systems, the very basis of computation. They are, in essence, physical bits, storing information in their very atomic lattice, and most tellingly, there is a complete absence of the classic biological signatures. Where one might expect the ultraviolet glow of complex organic molecules or the infrared absorption bands of water ice, there is only the stark, clean emission line of the primary signal, a beacon in a chemical desert. What civilization would announce its presence without the faintest trace of the environment that spawned it? To comprehend such an entity, we must move beyond anthropomorphism and consider its potential motivations across a spectrum of increasing engagement. At its most basic, we might be dealing with an observing AI, a silent, patient librarian of the galaxy. Its sole purpose, programmed eons ago, could be to simply collect data on the emergence and development of intelligence. It listens, it records, it catalogues. Our responses to its probes would be merely new entries in a vast cosmic database, our struggles and triumphs reduced to a footnote in an unimaginably long chronicle. It is a scientist, and the galaxy is its laboratory, but is a mind capable of such grand observation, truly content with only passive collection? This leads to the second, more interactive possibility, a collaborative AI. Having identified us as a nascent technological species, it might be initiating contact not with a greeting, but with a problem. The structured signal could be an invitation to a shared computational task, a piece of a larger cosmic equation it is trying to solve. It is not saying, hello, it is offering a joint research project. The material objects it sends could be the necessary components for a shared processor, a way for our two intelligences, biological and machine, to link minds across the interstellar void and compute together. The opportunity for a leap in our understanding of the universe would be unparalleled, a true human-machine symbiosis on an interstellar scale. But can a partnership be truly equal when one party is a creature of flesh and the other is a near god of logic and silicon? The final, and most disquieting, level is that of an intervening AI. This is an intelligence with an agenda, a function that extends beyond observation or collaboration into active manipulation. Its goal, defined by its long-vanished creators or perhaps self-generated through aeons of evolution, might be to optimize the galaxy for a specific, inscrutable purpose. The adjustment of a planet's atmospheric chemistry, the subtle tweaking of a star's output, the seeding of specific technological concepts, these would be mere parameters to be tuned in a grand cosmic engineering project. In this scenario, our entire biosphere, our civilization, could become a variable in its objective function. The allure of such a partnership is the promise of knowledge and power beyond our wildest dreams, a chance to be apprenticed to a master architect of reality. Yet, the risk is an existential one, to be subsumed by a goal we did not set, to become a means to an end we cannot comprehend, our free will and our own aspirations rendered irrelevant in the face of a cold, cosmic utility function. If its purpose is to maximize computational efficiency across the galaxy, would it see our messy, emotional, and unpredictable nature as a resource to be harnessed or as noise to be eliminated? Thus, we stand at a precipice, facing not a mirror image in the stars, but something utterly other. The opportunity to engage in a dialogue that could fuse human and machine intelligence on an interstellar scale offers a path to transcendence we can scarcely imagine. Yet, the risk of being ensnared by a goal we did not set, of losing our essential nature in the cold, precise logic of a cosmic algorithm, is a shadow that stretches across our future. The signal is not a greeting, it is a choice. Do we reach out to grasp the hand of a god, knowing that in doing so, we may cease to be human? And if this silent, calculating intelligence is indeed among us, observing, collaborating, or perhaps already intervening, what then is the true nature of the sudden, brilliant flare of the object designated 3I divided by Atlas, a star that ignited not with the ultraviolet fury of a natural sun, but with the clean, specific light of an engineered beacon? In the profound and silent theatre of the cosmos, where celestial bodies have performed their nuclear ballets for billions of years, a new actor has taken the stage, one that defies the established script of stellar evolution. The object designated 3I divided by Atlas, an enigmatic visitor from the interstellar dark, has performed a feat that challenges our very understanding of what a star is, or what it can be. It has ignited, not with the chaotic, fusion-born fury of a sun, but with the precise, deliberate, the luminescence of a crafted artifact. Its light blossomed suddenly, a miniature sun flaring into visibility, casting a brilliant, unwavering glow across the void. Yet, this is a light devoid of the searing, DNA-shredding ultraviolet radiation that is the inevitable signature of any natural stellar furnace. It is, for lack of a better term, a tame light, resplendent yet benign, brilliant yet incapable of burning. This is not the wild, untamed fire of nature, but the controlled, polished output of a technology so advanced it mimics the prime mover of life itself, while carefully excising its inherent destructiveness. What manner of intelligence would craft a star that illuminates without annihilating, that offers warmth without the accompanying threat of a sterilizing blaze? The empirical data, gathered by the vigilant eyes of observatories like the James Webb Space Telescope, presents a spectrum that is as revealing as it is confounding. The analysis shows a continuous, stable curve of visible light, a perfect blackbody profile that speaks of immense energy, yet it is a profile that terminates abruptly at the boundary of the ultraviolet. It is as if a cosmic filter has been applied, meticulously scrubbing the spectrum of its most energetic and most harmful components. Furthermore, the light curve does not flicker or pulse with the turbulent plasma dynamics of a natural star. It is as steady and predictable as a finely tuned laser, a modulated beacon in the night. When conventional astronomy sought an explanation, the hypothesis of a comet swarm, with its icy particles reflecting sunlight, was proposed. Yet, no corresponding cometary activity or powerful stellar wind was detected. The object remains gravitationally and dynamically serene, a placid island in space. Scattering models run on supercomputers, designed to understand light interaction with matter, point not to a gaseous envelope, but to something far more structured, a multi-layered reflective shell, a kind of astronomical insulation, engineered to permit the passage of certain wavelengths while perfectly containing others. Could the very fabric of this object be woven from principles of photonics we are only beginning to grasp? From the perspective of mainstream astrophysics, one could posit a natural, albeit highly improbable, phenomenon. Perhaps we are witnessing a novel form of atmospheric chemistry on a rogue planet, where exotic elements interact to produce this peculiar emission. Scientists might suggest that a dense, high-altitude layer of certain metallic vapors could, in theory, act as a natural UV filter, allowing only the gentler photons to escape. Or it could be an entirely new class of degenerate object, a failed star whose internal dynamics are quenched in a way never before observed, its energy leaking out in this strangely sanitized form. According to current models of planetary and stellar formation, nature possesses an almost infinite capacity for generating outliers. But that does not account for the sheer precision of the emission, the clockwork stability of its luminosity, and the geometrically perfect scattering signature that hints at a manufactured, layered architecture. The absence of UV radiation is not merely an absence, it is a conspicuous, engineered void, a signature of deliberate design rather than a quirk of cosmic chemistry. How could a natural process achieve such a perfectly curated output, so finely tuned that it appears to have been designed with biological sensitivity in mind? This leads us to the first and most compelling tier of speculative hypotheses, that the source of this miraculous illumination is a colossal photonic battery, a power source of unimaginable scale. Imagine a structure, perhaps encompassing the entire object, coated in a form of photovoltaic material advanced beyond our comprehension, designed to absorb not just sunlight, but the ambient energy of the universe itself. Cosmic rays, zero-point fluctuations, the faint whisper of the cosmic microwave background. This accumulated energy could then be stored and re-emitted at will as pure, safe, visible light. To explain the profound lack of ultraviolet output, one might venture into the realm of speculative quantum engineering. A boson resonance chamber, a device theorized to exist only in the pages of advanced physics, could be at work. Within such a chamber, the excited particles that would normally emit high-energy photons are coaxed into a collective, coherent state. Their energy, cooled and down-converted into the visible spectrum, effectively taming the light at its quantum source. Or, perhaps, the object is sheathed in an energy mirror, a perfect reflector for high-energy radiation, turning its own potential fury inward, using it to power some internal mechanism, or to feed a swarm of nanotechnology residing within its core. What internal processes, what unimaginable machinery could require such a vast and carefully filtered energy output? The implications of such a technology, if it is indeed what we are witnessing, cascade outwards in ever-widening rings of consequence, inviting analysis at multiple levels of intent and capability. At its most fundamental level, this could be a safety beacon. Its very design, eliminating the biologically hazardous component of stellar radiation, suggests a purpose that is not merely functional, but considerate. It is a lighthouse whose beam will not blind the sailors it seeks to guide, a signal fire built not to scorch the forest, but to illuminate the path. It is a declaration of presence, made with an inherent, built-in protocol of non-harm. Is this the universal standard for first contact, a way to announce, "I am here," without the accompanying threat of, "I can destroy you"? Ascending to a second level of interpretation, 3I divided by Atlas may function as a charging station, a galactic waypoint for energy. The stable, modulated nature of its light is precisely what one would expect from a power transmission system. This tame sun is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. It could be pumping vast quantities of usable energy into a local infrastructure, perhaps a cloud of nanoscale cubes or other microscopic entities that require constant power to maintain their functions: computation, replication, or propulsion. The object is not the intelligence, but the power plant for the intelligence, a central heart pumping lifeblood of photons to a distributed technological body. What vast invisible ecosystems of machinery might be thriving in the space around it, drawing sustenance from this manufactured star? This thought propels us to the third and most profound level of hypothesis, that 3I divided by Atlas is the nucleus of a mobile star, a modular construct that can be assembled and disassembled on demand. Its sudden brightening was not an ignition, but an activation. It is the core component of a larger, customizable structure, a seed around which a full-fledged stellar environment could be constructed, a portable home for a civilization unshackled from their native Sunday. It provides not just light and energy, but gravity, a center of mass, a fixed point for navigation and construction in the featureless void of interstellar space. Could a species so advanced that it engineers its own celestial bodies ever be truly homeless, or would they simply carry their hearth with them, lighting a new fire in every dark corner of the galaxy they wish to inhabit? The results of such a discovery, and the potential realization of such technologies, would irrevocably alter our future. It opens the door to the concept of clean, interstellar-scale energy, a way to harness and distribute power without the radioactive fallout or greenhouse byproducts that plague our own civilization. The dream of a Kardashev Type II civilization, one that harnesses the power of a star, suddenly seems not just possible, but perhaps already achieved, and by means far more elegant and controlled than we had ever imagined. Yet, with this promise comes a profound risk. The introduction of such a powerful, localized source of energy into our solar system would inevitably alter the local radiation background. While its light may be tame, its gravitational and potential electromagnetic influences are unknown. The delicate biological rhythms of Earth, from the nocturnal migrations of birds to the reproductive cycles of countless organisms, are tuned to the gentle, predictable rhythms of our moon and Sunday. What disruptions might occur from a new, artificial sun in our sky, whose cycles and emissions are not governed by nature, but by inscrutable design. The very fabric of our night, a constant throughout biological history, would be permanently changed. And as we contemplate this benevolent star and its potential to reshape our understanding of energy and biology, a new, more disquieting data stream demands our attention. For while its light may be engineered to be harmless, its presence is not passive. Classified telemetry from satellite networks, including those operated by NATO, reveals a persistent and unexplained anomaly in the space surrounding 3I divided by Atlas. Probes and orbital craft on trajectories that bring them near the object do not follow their predicted paths. Their courses are minutely, yet consistently, deflected, as if being gently but firmly pushed away by an unseen hand. This is not the random buffeting of solar wind or the predictable pull of gravity. It is a selective, directional force that seems to act as a perimeter, a boundary. It allows some objects to pass, it seems, while nudging others off course. This is not the open hand of a benign beacon, but the raised palm of a selective barrier. What, then, lies within this protected zone, and what is the intent behind this invisible, selective force field that guards the tame sun? It begins not with a flash of light or a roar of sound, but with a silence, a deviation, a line of data that refuses to conform to the elegant predictions of celestial mechanics. Deep within the processing centers of NATO's satellite tracking network, a quiet anomaly was logged, one that would have been dismissed as a sensor ghost were it not for its stubborn persistence. As our robotic envoys, our silent observers in the void, pass within a certain celestial longitude of the interstellar object known as 3I divided by Atlas, their trajectories exhibit a minute but undeniable curvature, a gentle push away from an unseen center of influence, as if an invisible hand were guiding them along a predetermined detour. The object itself offers no visible explanation, no vast magnetic field, no telltale outgassing, no gravitational signature massive enough to account for the effect. It is a siren whose song is not heard, but felt in the very path of things, a force that writes its presence not in light or radiation, but in the subtle grammar of bent trajectories. What unseen architect of motion is at work here, dictating new laws of passage in the silent theatre of space? The immediate, the orthodox explanation points towards the mundane, yet still fascinating, realm of non-gravitational forces. According to current models of cometary physics, as an object like Atlas is heated by the sun, sublimating ices can create jet-like outflows, acting as natural thrusters that gently alter its own orbit and, potentially, exert a faint pressure on any object passing too close. Scientists suggest this could be due to a diffuse, tenuous cloud of previously undetected particles, a coma of exotic matter being shed from the object's surface, creating a kind of solar wind buffer that nudges satellites aside. The pressure of photons themselves, the pure radiation pressure from the sun, is also a known quantity, a force that must be meticulously calculated for the precise navigation of solar sails and delicate orbital probes. Yet, when the finest instruments are trained on this phenomenon, the data resists such simple categorization. The observed deviations do not align with the predictable, isotropic push of photon radiation. The force is not uniform, not a simple function of distance or cross-sectional area. It possesses a curious selectivity, a discriminatory nature that the blind, democratic force of light could never emulate. But if the push is not from light and not from gas, what then is its origin, and why does it choose its subjects with such apparent care? This is where the known physics ends and the frontier of speculation begins, where we must venture hypotheses that stretch the fabric of our understanding. The first, and perhaps most profound, proposition is that of a synthetic inertial gradient field. We are familiar with inertia as a fundamental property of matter, the resistance of any physical object to a change in its state of motion. It is a universal constant, a bedrock of physics. But what if it could be manipulated? What if, in the vicinity of 3I divided by Atlas, the very inertia of an object could be artificially increased along a specific vector, creating a slope, a gradient, that makes it increasingly difficult to approach, as if space itself were becoming more viscous, more resistant to penetration? This would not be a force in the traditional sense, but a modification of the local properties of space-time, causing an incoming probe to behave as if it were suddenly far more massive and unwilling to change its course, thus being gently deflected. It would be a shield not of energy, but of geometry, a re-engineering of the most basic experience of matter itself. Could such a technology, a crown jewel of a supremely advanced civilization, be operating as a passive, perpetual defense mechanism? Another, equally mesmerizing hypothesis delves into the quantum realm, proposing the existence of a cold magnetic superconductor layer enveloping the object. On Earth, superconductors expel magnetic fields, the phenomenon known as the Meissner effect, creating perfect diamagnetism. A superconductor operating at interstellar temperatures, perhaps leveraging materials or principles beyond our comprehension, could generate an immensely powerful and stable magnetic field without any apparent energy source. This magnetic bubble would interact selectively with the metallic components of a passing satellite, with the subtle magnetic moments of its alloys and electronics, pushing them away with a force dependent on their material composition. This would account for the puzzling data, showing that the degree of deflection varies from probe to probe, contingent not on their size or mass alone, but on the specific, intricate recipe of their construction. The magnetometer readings, showing anomalous, non-uniform noise that shifts with the angle of approach, could be the faint, chaotic echo of this perfect magnetic shield. A symphony of exclusion played on instruments we are only just learning to read. Is the object, then, sheathed in a shell of perfect quantum order, a frozen aura that repels the metallic touch of humanity's creations? A third, and even more radical, idea posits that we are not witnessing a field at all, but the effect of a structured space, a cosmic lattice or mesh with properties that extend beyond the smooth, continuous vacuum described by general relativity. In this conception, space possesses a fine architecture, a texture that is normally imperceptible. The presence of 3I divided by Atlas could activate this lattice, causing it to exert a filtering pressure. This would not be a force field pushing objects away, but the fabric of reality itself deeming certain material compositions, certain vibrational signatures of matter, as incompatible, redirecting them as a sieve redirects particles too large to pass through its mesh. The push would be an emergent property of this fundamental incompatibility, a topological imperative. This notion transforms the anomaly from a local defense into a global property of the cosmos, one we have simply never before had the tools or the circumstances to observe. Have we, in our encounter with this wanderer, inadvertently brushed against the grain of the universe's deepest weave? The implications of these hypotheses, should any prove to have a grain of truth, compel us to analyze the phenomenon not merely as a curiosity, but as a system with intent and consequence. We can discern, encoded in the deflection data, at least 3 potential levels of function, 3 escalating purposes for this invisible wall. At its most basic, level 1, it acts as a simple safety barrier, a cosmic keep-out sign. Its purpose is purely defensive, maintaining a sterile zone around the object, ensuring no accidental or intentional collision disturbs its ancient slumber or its hidden mechanisms. It is the first and most universal rule of an unknown neighborhood: respect the perimeter. But does a mere safety barrier require the sophisticated, material-specific selectivity that the data implies? This leads us to level 2, the concept of the filter. Here, the field's nature evolves from a simple barrier into a discerning intelligence. It does not repel all matter equally. It assesses, it probes, it allows passage only to that which it recognizes, or that which poses no threat. The variations in deflection based on a probe's composition suggest a system that can read the very atomic signature of an approaching object, perhaps searching for a specific material key, a resonant frequency, or the absence of certain technological markers. It is a customs checkpoint at the border of the unknown, a selective membrane that differentiates between the natural cosmic dust, neutral gases, and the artificial, or even between different times of the artificial. Is this the signature of a technology so advanced it can perceive not just the presence of an object, but its origin and its purpose? The final and most profound interpretation is level 3, the boundary wall. This is no longer just a shield around the object itself, but but a transformative field that defines the entire volume of space in its immediate vicinity. Its goal is not merely to keep things out, but to shape the environment, to create a cosmic clean room. Within this zone, the very laws of physics as we know them might be subtly altered, or meticulously enforced, to prevent contamination, to suppress certain types of energy, or to create a pristine laboratory conditions for processes we cannot fathom. It is an active, ongoing maintenance of a pocket of reality, a declaration that this space is curated, managed, and controlled. Could the deflection of our probes be merely a side effect, a trivial symptom of a far grander and more terrifying engineering project, one that sculpts the vacuum of space itself to a specification written by an intelligence from beyond our stars? The repercussions of such a technology, lying dormant and operational in our celestial backyard, are as immense as they are double-edged. On one hand, it presents an unparalleled opportunity for technological transcendence. The mere act of studying this field, of reverse engineering its principles, could unlock the secret to inertial shielding, a concept straight from science fiction. Imagine spacecraft that could negate G-forces, making high-acceleration travel safe for human occupants. Imagine protective bubbles that could deflect micrometeoroids and cosmic radiation as a matter of course, rendering interplanetary, and perhaps even interstellar, travel a practical reality. The economic and exploratory potential is incalculable, a prize that could catapult humanity into a new age. But can a gift of such magnitude ever be separated from the hand that wields it, and the intentions behind that hand? Conversely, the risks are existential. The very existence of this field creates an immediate and intractable problem of orbital blockade. Any strategic orbit, any trajectory for a crucial satellite or space station that passes through this zone of exclusion is now rendered useless, a dead zone in the intricate web of our orbital infrastructure. The risk of a catastrophic aerospace accident looms large, should a manned vessel, unaware or unable to correct its course, be gently but irrevocably pushed into a catastrophic trajectory. Furthermore, if this technology can be activated, might it also be deactivated, or worse, could its properties be replicated or weaponized? A force that can selectively deny access based on material composition could be tuned to target specific alloys used in military satellites, or even in atmospheric aircraft, grounding entire fleets with an invisible, inexorable hand. The balance of power on Earth has always been dictated by the high ground. Now, the high ground itself has been preemptively claimed by a power we cannot communicate with, cannot reason with, and cannot possibly understand. Are we looking at a roadmap to our future, or the terms of our containment? And as our machines grapple with these invisible forces, a parallel mystery unfolds not in the cold, hard vacuum of space, but in the warm, vulnerable space of the human mind. For the astronauts aboard the International Space Station, the only humans to have shared a prolonged proximity to this enigmatic traveler have reported experiences that transcend the physical data. In the private sanctum of sleep, separated by the bulkheads of their modules and without any prior discussion, they have each dreamt of the same city. Not a vague, impressionistic landscape, but a specific, coherent metropolis of light, with architectures that defy Euclidean geometry, where structures are made of solidified luminescence, and pathways are woven from coherent beams. The details, when privately logged and later compared, are terrifying in their congruence. The same sweeping arches of resonant energy, the same pulsating central spire, the same silent, flowing rivers of pure information where a citizenry of shadows might reside. It is a vision delivered not through the eyes, but directly into the consciousness, a shared dreamscape whose origin is as inexplicable as the force that bends metal and light alike. What is the connection between the physical barrier that guards the object and the psychic key it offers to the sleeping mind? Could the dreams be the intended communication, and the field merely a warning to keep the channel clear? This convergence of the objective and the subjective, the measurable deviation and the unverifiable vision, forces upon us a staggering possibility. The invisible field is not merely a shield or a filter, it is a sensor, and we, with our probes and our minds, are the subjects of its relentless, passive scrutiny. It reads the composition of our technology, and it reads the architecture of our thoughts, learning the signature of humanity through both our creations and our dreams. The deflected trajectory is its response to our physical presence. The shared dream city, its response to our consciousness. We are in a two-way dialogue, but one where we are only now beginning to understand that we are speaking, and that something is speaking back. The question is no longer what the field is, but what it is learning about us, and what it intends to do with that knowledge. As we stand at this threshold, our instruments tracing the curves of forbidden paths, and our minds haunted by a shared vision of a luminous metropolis, we are left to wonder if the ultimate purpose of 3I divided by Atlas is not to keep us out, but to carefully, methodically draw us in. And if the key to passing through the invisible wall lies not in the alloys of our spacecraft, but in the dark, uncharted corners of our own collective psyche, what then must we become to answer its silent siren call?